How's everybody today? Hi, Cindy. We haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
Are you in Ohio? Are you in Ohio or Florida?
I'm in Ohio. I have two granddaughters participating in synchronized swim,
Oh,
and
cool.
they live, which is taking place in Sandusky, but they live in Avon. So I've been on the road. They've been spending the night. So the show is next weekend. So
That sounds really nice, though.
they have a lot of fun with it. So, and I know this probably sounds really odd, but they swim to a Broadway show. So the music is all from a Broadway show, and and ages probably from 5 to maybe 16-year-olds. And it's been a lot of fun, but it's really taken up a lot of my time. So here I'm here.
Sounds like a lot of rehearsal time.
It is. It is.
What show they're doing?
Yes, well, they're doing Legally Blonde, but there is a Legally Blonde junior rendition, so it's not quite as you know, they don't bend and snap and things like that like they did in the movie. So.
I didn't know that was a Broadway show. I thought it was just a movie.
I think it was in the last few years that they released that one.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So.
Did you ever see that there's a YouTube video of a high school talent show? I think it's high school. It might be college, where some guys did a synchronized swim.
Yes.
It is so funny.
It is. Well, and usually when they have a show, usually the male lifeguards from the pool end up doing a number that nobody knows about. It's always a secret. So so yeah, they're always you know, I don't know what's the right word, not harassing, but kind of making fun of us. You know, making fun of it. And it's all in good fun.
Nice.
There we go. I'm going to let my seat down a little.
Oh, looky.
Oh,
There.
Audrey's got company.
I do. You're right. This is my granddaughter, Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Katie.
Oh, let me show you all my friends so you can see them. She spent the night last night.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. She wanted to meet all my knitting friends.
Do you like to knit?
Have we met Katie before? I mean, we met one of your granddaughters before.
I don't think you met Katie before.
Katie, you knit?
She
Do
would
you knit,
like to
Katie?
learn, but I haven't
Oh.
taught her yet.
I do.
Okay.
Oh, she does know how to knit.
Oh,
She's 6.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice to meet you.
Robin's been teaching her granddaughter. You guys could get some tips from her.
I learned from my grandma, but a long time ago.
Yeah, I learned from my mom.
Yeah, I learned from my mom a long, long time ago.
Yeah. Well, Katie's cousin Gus is coming up soon, so then she's going to be playing with Gus.
You can hang out with us though until then if you want.
You want to? Okay. I'm going to turn our mute on though, so that we don't, all of our conversation doesn't go to all of our friends.
Well, maybe it would be fun for Katie to hear where we are and what we've been knitting and our progress, and if we're done with our project.
Oh, sure. Because
Before that comes.
she saw mine and we tried it on, but it hasn't been blocked yet.
Wow.
So it's kind of
Nice.
lumpy.
Nice.
She can help you with that.
I think she scattered. Okay. That was enough, I guess.
I guess I just assigned too much in the syllabus.
Yeah.
Oh no, she heard somebody downstairs. Sometimes there's a lot of coming and going in this house, but I'm going to put it on mute now.
How was your Ragnar weekend?
Oh, the Ragnar weekend was busy, and I'm almost inspired to try to take up running because they promised I could have all the easy spots if I wanted to join next year.
Oh, cool.
The easy spots would be under 3 miles, under 5K.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
And
pick somebody
flat.
else.
Some
And-
of the legs are more like 10 miles, and I definitely would never do that.
And hilly.
So
Well,
Katie's mom was in it. So
Oh,
she was there last weekend too, right?
nice.
All right. Thanks for listening. I'm going on mute.
I think we're getting a rainstorm here.
Nice, send it my way.
Yeah, we haven't had rain since last week, and
Oh.
and it's been so hot that we had heavy rain last weekend, but within a day it was all dried up.
Here in Chicago, we had even hail and so much rain last night. I mean,
Wow,
so it's coming your way.
good.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully, I mean, it's supposed to rain now for a few hours, starting around 2 o'clock. So
It's around
the-
100 in Philly. And it's
Uh,
supposed to be hotter tomorrow. So I think the rain is supposed to hit Monday. It's probably the same storm
Yeah,
coming out here.
yeah, I mean, a nice cool breeze is coming up, which is, I have the house wide open so it can all blow out some of the heat. How's everybody doing on their project? Making progress? Isha, let's see yours. Hold it up. So Isha's not using our yarn, but she's got pretty colors.
She's counting.
And you're making the large throw, right?
very large.
Super pretty.
Sorry, I was on mute. Let me finish this row because I'm doing a decrease row at the moment and trying to
Okay.
do something.
All right.
Somebody else can go first.
Anybody else have any questions or anything to start off, or?
Mine's been washed and is now in the drying stage.
Oh, nice.
I
Yeah.
got mine all finished yesterday and it's all blocked. So
There
Nice.
you go.
Let's
Let's
see.
Such a pretty thing, isn't it?
Oh, that looks nice.
Nice.
yeah, and it really, I love every one of the yarns.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, which one's my favorite? And then you
It's hard
block
to
it and every one of them comes out so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love this pattern.
Yeah, it's
The one
simple.
with the CVN. I thought that'd be pretty in a sweater. Did you say you have it in a sweater or something?
Yeah, Angele. It's the bottom half of the Angele sweater is that pattern.
Okay, I'll have to look for that because I loved it. I didn't have enough of number one to do this stripe, so I did a different stripe.
Yeah, and the top half of Angele is a little bit like pattern number 2. It's garter rows like that, but they form a diamond shape.
Okay.
It's really fun to do it.
It's fun.
Josie, did you knit that sweater?
Angeline, no, it's on my list, but Audrey did.
And Debbie, if you bought the sweater essentials class from Etsy,
I
that pattern came free.
It's there. Yeah.
It's a free download with it.
Okay, I remember that sweater now that I think about it. It's beautiful. It's more fitted than I would probably want to go up a size or something because I'd want to.
No, the fitting is very gentle and
Is
it's
it?
not that fitted. Amanda made one.
Yeah, I
And
made one too.
yeah, did you make one, Sherry?
I did, and Debbie, if you go up a size, then your shoulder seam is going to be off because it has a set-in sleeve.
That's
So-
so. I just, Anne's so petite. Don't tell her that. But that she looks so cute in those fitted sweaters.
Yeah, but I am not, and I made
I'm
one
not.
and it looks good. So there you go.
Okay.
And I'm not petite, and every time I wear it, people say, wow, that's a really nice one.
Did you do that in the Briar Rose? Like, isn't
I
that what
did.
yours was, Anne? It's Briar Rose.
Yeah, it was the I think it was knit in the Legend sport yarn.
I just remember it was a
which
beautiful
was
pattern.
discontinued years ago. I mean, it was discontinued almost immediately after I knit that sweater.
Yeah, I think
but-
I went looking for it immediately after I bought that class and went,
Yeah, but like the Fin Dandy would be really similar, and the you know, if you like the Shetland, that would be pretty in that. The stitch
Amanda
pattern,
made a red one, I believe.
I did. Yeah, I with the oh no, you know what? I used Grandma's Blessing, not Legend. I used Grandma's Blessing, which was a heavy fingering yarn, almost like a sport weight wool, and it was like 400 yards and 4 ounces, I think, but it had a real springy, lofty hand, and it had a firm twist. So a heavier fingering yarn or a light sport yarn would be ideal for that.
okay, what did you do yours in, Amanda?
I did mine in Briar Rose Legend, so discontinued.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I love
And-
the coloring of it because it was subtle but pretty.
Yeah. I know people have used Sea Pearl, I think, for that too.
Okay. Just another one to add to the queue. I have only a million things I want to knit now.
It's nice because the style is very much like a jacket. So if you know, and you dress up for work pretty much, right? So you have, if you want to wear a jacket and skirt, or you want something a little more comfortable than a jacket, it's a nice sweater.
Okay, I'll take a real good look at that.
Do it.
I think I was planning on doing the is it Naughty Pine? With my Fin Dandy, but after this, I don't know if you remember, in May when I got back from my trip, I yanked my luggage off the conveyor belt that was going around and did something to my hand. And it's been really nasty to me ever since. And it seems like the DK yarn made it, and the larger needles were tougher on it. So I keep going, maybe I'll just do Naughty Pine, not for the Rhinebeck, and choose something else that's not quite so big of a needle.
Also,
I found that too, the larger needle was harder on my weird thumb problem.
Yeah.
I always thought it would be the smaller ones, but I wondered if it was the weight of the material,
That's
because
possible.
there was,
Yeah.
you know.
and the action when you knit with a larger needle is different. I always find that if I haven't been changing needle sizes frequently enough, you know, with a variety of projects, then it is a big adjustment.
Okay.
But also, Debbie, the Naughty Pine is not patterned for Fin Dandy.
It's
The pattern is for Target Tango worsted.
oh, that's
It's
what it was. That's what I have is Target.
just making sure.
Yeah,
want
you're right.
I don't want you to make big plans and then realize when you cast on that you have the wrong yarn.
Well, I do have Fin in the Fin Dandy in brown because I still need to make Robin's nest, but haven't done that yet either.
And I have a quick question about the Naughty Pine. Are all the pieces knit? Because I don't have the right size needles, so.
What? You have to repeat that because it cut out briefly when you were asking.
Are all of the pieces for the Naughty Pine knit flat?
Yes.
Okay. And then is the ribbing done on that? If you did the cardigan, is it all the way around, like on the Robin's Nest in that sense? I want to make sure I get a cable that's long enough. I don't have the right size needles to swatch.
I'm sorry. Is the ribbing all the way around?
The button
Yeah,
band?
like where I can pick up
Button
stitches from the bottom, front, all the way around,
yes.
all the way down.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
it's
thought
okay.
I thought you were talking about the hem ribbing. I'm like, yeah, it is all the way around. Yeah. I was picturing.
Well, with
something
me, you
completely
can never be sure that my question makes any sense.
Well, and then I overthought it because I realized, oh, the whole body is knit in a rib stitch. So, I'm not sure. Yeah. The button band for the V-neck cardigan is all the way around.
Yeah, I've been having a little bit of brain fog because I've been using the wrong words lately. I don't know what's going on.
And I use like, I was able to do my button band on the 32-inch needle, I think.
Okay.
I don't remember pulling out I might have pulled out the 40-inch needle. I don't think.
I have 9s and 11s, but oddly I don't have 10s.
But Naughty Pine hasn't been released yet, right?
No, coming
I
this
know, but
week.
I could swatch to see what my stockinette gauge is.
I should
Well, I
say,
need to get the needle.
if all goes as planned, it will be out this week.
Ooh, yay.
Yeah, I say.
So do we know the gauge if I want to swatch?
Yeah, we discussed it a couple times, but let me bring it
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry. I probably was gone during that time.
Let me open the pattern. Hang on.
I think I wrote it down.
It's 12 and a half stitches and 22 and a half rows equals 4 inches in stockinette on larger needles in the Target Tango worsted, washed and dried.
Okay, that's washed. And that's your larger needles are a 10?
Correct. Or whatever, or the size
need to
to
get
obtain
paid.
correct. Yes.
I'm usually right on your.
Once more, please.
Sorry?
I didn't get it all down. Can you read that once more, please?
Yes, it's 12 and a half stitches and 22 and a half rows equals 4 inches in stockinette on larger needles in the Target Tango worsted, washed and dried.
Okay, thank you.
So, and the reason I stipulate the yarn is because that is an unwashed yarn. And so you really do need to wash your swatch after you do it. And with other yarns, you may find you need different needles because the unwashed yarns are quite different. And then in the pattern stitch, which is that rib, it's like 16 stitches and 23 rows equals 4 inches.
Is the barn box yarn also an unwashed one?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought so. Yeah.
It's
I'm so excited about that. I got them and I'm like now dying to figure out what to make.
Size did you
I'm gonna
get?
make Firefly with it, Melissa.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, I'm really
That's
excited.
a good decision.
I'm having squirrel problems because every idea that anybody proposes sounds fantastic. And I bought Sherry's every suggestion. I bought every single one. And the sun drop is super pretty. I think that one might work. Yeah, no, I'm just like squirrel, totally. And then the yarn came and I was like, oh, wow, I really like it. But I've got my hellacious project that I don't know. I might become non-monogamous just because I can't stand to wait any longer.
I'm just starting my cast on for the petals.
That's very pretty, but I need a sweater. So
well,
that part I do know.
I am
Yeah.
currently working on getting this to the point where Barb can.
If you
knit
tell me
us
you're
a
working up
sample
a shell out of
in
that,
that yarn.
Then we're
I will
both
be pretty in that yarn. I will totally wait.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the petals top.
For a shell or
Hopefully
a tank?
it's coming up. Come on, come up.
Be the storms.
I'm trying to get and there we go. So that's the swatch for the shawl, but I can just see a tank and a top with a sleeve.
Oh, I can see really pretty.
That would be
Yeah.
really pretty.
Beautiful hem.
It kind of has a natural flare in the lower half where the pattern changes. So I love that. I think the top pattern could go down past the bust to the mid torso, then start the next pattern. The thing, I just have to pattern it all in reverse because it would be knit bottom up. But I think that would be really pretty.
That would
That
be
would be
really-
lovely.
I need that very, very badly.
Yeah, me
I
too,
thought-
because
yeah,
it would totally
I
solve
agree.
my problem.
Yeah, everybody
Yes.
wants. Yeah, I got a bunch of little projects up my sleeves that are.
All right, I'll wait.
Yeah, don't use it up now when you it's
Mm.
gonna come out.
Yeah, it needs to come out during the Rhinebeck period, though.
Well, and I mean, I'm working on it. Barbara's gonna knit our sample for us, so I'm trying to get her a draft pattern for this coming week. And then whenever she's done with that, then we have to send it to tech editing. So yeah, you might not see it till, September or nearly October.
Oh, no, no, no.
Not sure I can sit on the yarn that long. I don't know.
Oh, come on. I mean, I can't just make it up here. I mean, when it
Oh,
when it
what
has
do you mean? It's magic.
when
We're
it
pretty
has to-
magical, Ann.
when it has to go to tech editing, it's just
We're
you
just
know-
razzing you. You make magic
Just-
happen all the time.
Send
Don't
me
pay any
some
attention to
numbers. I can adjust if I just have a guideline. I'm stuck on the neck. My brain figured out the body of
that.
it,
Yeah.
but not the neck and the armholes.
yeah, I know.
Stuck.
Yeah,
That is the
I-
part where she has to get
All right,
involved.
fine. I'll wait.
I'm sorry. I do my best.
Melissa,
The
you
only-
can do Elos CS in that yarn. I just thought of.
I was thinking about that one. My biggest challenge right now is that everything I like, I've made like 3 times. So maybe I should branch out a little bit. But I was thinking dandelion honey would be really lovely in it too. And I love my dandelion honey. I wear it like constantly, except for right now. But yeah.
There's a lot of choices.
I
Look at
also was
Janet
thinking
Guthrie.
C-frat, because what doesn't look good in C-frat? So,
I love this idea because I can see it in other of our yarns, like going into the fall and winter, like the deco with that little shine and the goat, maybe even the goat lace for a sheer like holiday, like under a jacket.
And the little lacy accent is so pretty.
Yeah.
Really is.
With a long skirt or something, that would be pretty. I even found a Pico cast on that I can use for the bottom. The only thing that's, I think it's different. Like these lines and lace, they diverge as they go up. I think when you work from the bottom up, they might have to go in the other direction, but that wouldn't be objectionable.
That is not a deal breaker.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't think most people would even notice, but the whole rest of it is totally reversible from top to bottom. And shapeable and everything like that.
Sounds
I had-
lovely.
I
Maybe
had
we'll
this
just have
other
to make
shell-
several things out of this wonderful yarn and just be patient. for
Yeah,
that
I had
one.
this other shell that I was knitting that I love the design of, but the lace pattern is, the shaping within the lace pattern is so asymmetrical that it is just not going to work out to have a neckline inserted in a pretty way in 10 sizes. So I have to can that one, which I'm really bummed about, but.
You were knitting a tank one time, and so when this yarn came out, I went, maybe she has a pattern for it. And
No,
then
it's
Ella
not.
came out.
Hi, Bruce. He just walked up.
You didn't see the dog chasing the cat up to the kitchen table over here.
We can just imagine it.
It's great. I have to go. We are headed to an Italian cousin family reunion.
Oh, that sounds
fun.
like fun.
It is going to be great, but I'm very feverishly trying to finish up this row to show you. I'm on the last garter border on the wrap.
Wow.
And I got like 8 more stitches and just a couple rows. It is glorious. I'm going to
Sherry,
love this winter.
Sherry, I just want to say I love the colors in your house.
I know. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that
Thank
shop
you.
before.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of an odd color,
Yeah, in a nice way.
but
It's
thank you.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a nice
great.
pumpkin color.
It is pumpkin. It's exactly what it is. Pumpkin
We had,
spice.
in our apartment in New York, we had, my studio was painted that color. Oh, look at that.
Ooh,
Wow.
Beautiful.
very nice.
Oh,
Very
that's
nice.
gorgeous.
So I did a couple extra stripes, and it's all bare naked wool yarns, but it's just different odds and ends that I had left over from various projects.
Very
There-
cool.
Very nice.
Gorgeous.
It's gonna be good this winter.
Yeah.
And that's me. You guys have a great week.
Enjoy your party.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
See you
fun.
one
Bye.
day.
Tell your sister I said hi.
Will do.
I finished my cowl and it turns out Anne was right, shockingly. It's actually a nice size. It's big, it's generous,
Let's
but
see.
it's pretty.
Put it on, put it on.
It's a little warm for right now, but what's nice about it is that I can do this, right? Well, with the headset on, we'll see how that goes, but
Yeah. Oh, that
so
is
that's
cool.
going to be super nice. It's a really nice size. I may pass out having it on right now, but I have not blocked it yet, and I think that will really help. But it's really, really pretty stuff. And I like the, I have not listened to the videos that I missed, but I really like all the different yarns. It was fun, even though I didn't participate the way I had expected to. And I got a nice thing out of it. So thank you.
That's okay. I think we're going to do this again next year. We're planning on it at this point. Something, not the same project, of course, but a similar program. I think everybody has really enjoyed the process and the really experiential way that of comparing wools next to each other.
Yeah, that's fun. And having each one have its own personality is really nice.
Yeah, you can't, there's no substitute for that, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the words have more meaning now that we use one yarn and then another and see the difference.
Yeah.
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 Oh, I think the noise has arrived.
Yeah, I really love learning about the different sheep, and it really helps me like make decisions in my other projects, and it's really exciting. I also think to learn and play not just with the single breeds, but with the blends and see how the characteristics, the unique breeds, blends, these are things you're not going to find at almost any other yarn booth or, and really so creative in that way with the yarns, and to experience them in that way is so much fun. Like the CVM versus, the Romney versus the Stone Soup, just that contrast, so fascinating.
And the fact you can blend them together and get the best of everything. That's cool.
Well, and then if she does a blend next year with Romney with something else and how that's going to be different,
Right.
It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, I've been focusing so much on the single breed or just single breed with a one blending fiber that I haven't really thought about another blend that would be a good idea for us to the tune of Stone Soup, where we're really combining more than two fibers. It is something to think about, because that is such a favorite yarn for me that it would make sense to try doing something else.
Has the naming shut down yet?
As the what?
The naming of it? Have you stopped taking names?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh, look at Isha's dog.
throw it. Keep them.
I forget his name. But
It's happy.
It looks comfortable.
I just, when I was pinning it out and blocking it last night, some things popped in my head. So
yeah, I mean, I think you got an email with the
I did.
survey stuff in it, so that's
Okay.
that email would have the information.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully not. And I'm looking forward to that part of it. Seeing what everybody comes up with.
This is Cindy. When I was working on section E and it started to have those yarn overs, in my mind, I kept thinking, oh, this is going to be a puppy paw print.
Yeah.
I thought for
Yeah, I thought about that. I had a couple things marked in my stitch dictionaries that I thought I could like manipulate the shape of the stitches and everything, but then realized that the width of the stripes needed to be different for different size things, and that might kind of create a problem there.
Mhm.
So I didn't go forward with that. But by all means, if you want a puppy paw print and you find a pattern for one, throw it in there. And that's the other thing. There's no limit really for, if you can do a little bit of calculating and keep, and keep your stitch count, and come up with a stitch count for a pattern that's not included, you can add it.
Sure.
So I did the lap throw and I finished it, and I'm gonna have to stand away that, but
look at it.
It's all
nice.
finished and
Nice.
it's beautiful, and it's so straight. The lines are so straight. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I was a little impatient and couldn't wait for the next clues, and so I have some that are just patterns that I pulled out of a stitch dictionary. But it's all your yarns, and so it's got a couple of other different colors in it, because I started off thinking I was going to do a small cowl, and then I enjoyed it so much that it just sort of turned into something else, but it's beautiful. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and the lap blanket isn't too much knitting to do in the time period. I mean,
no, not at all. Not at all.
The rows are not that long, and it is a lot of fun, and I enjoyed knitting the sample that I did.
Yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed it. And it's the perfect size for me too, to just throw over my legs, work sitting on the couch or working at my desk.
Lap blankets have always been really popular with our crowd, and they really are such a nice gift, because if you feel like knitting a blanket, it's not like the blanket that ate Manhattan. It's just a nice size project. And even if you don't have someone to give it to right away, or you don't want to keep it, you could just fold it up and keep it for the next baby or the next elderly person who comes along who needs something like that.
Yeah, that's right. And you're right about it not being such a big commitment as a full blanket.
Yeah. Those big blankets get really heavy at a certain point, and then it's not as much fun to work on them.
One of the things that I like best about doing this project, and my project came to a halt for a while because I was finishing something else and I ran out of folkstone. So I had to wait for some to arrive. But I liked the fact that I felt free to innovate whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I created a new pattern. Well, not a new pattern, a new stripe. And I did half of the CVM pattern, and then I put folkstone in to divide it up, and then I did the other half of the stripe, so that I have, because I didn't want the stripes to be all the same size. So I have half the CVM and then I have some Folkestone as a little pattern, and then the other half of the CVM stripe. And I wanted extra Folkestone for that. So I can kind of show you where I am. Not done is the biggest answer. Can you
And
see?
yeah, that looks nice.
So then I'll do the other half of the CVM and then some more Folkestone.
So one of your stripes is striped.
Yeah, and I put in extra others to make the divider, and I'll do that again. So I have extra narrow stripes and then some more big stripes. Because I
And
want the stripes to be all different.
I had said this before, but almost all of these patterns can be reduced or expanded width-wise as much as you want. So
Yeah.
even that last pattern with the diagonal yarn overs, you don't have to do that whole chart. You can do half of it, which is what I did on one of my stripes. I really just knit that chart until my yarn almost ran out, you know, which ended up being like 6 rows, and then I did my border again. So I really prefer the stripes to be all different widths.
Yeah, so do I. But I had run out of Folkestone, so I had to wait for some more.
Now we have quite a storm brewing up here, so if you lose me, that's why. And of course, it's really nice and breezy with it, but
yeah, you've gotten darker.
I noticed that my picture was jiggling a little bit earlier, so it's possible we might lose contact with each other.
Yeah, I lost contact, but I was able to get right back on, but I figured it must be that.
Yeah.
Anne, was there anything else you were going to say about the yarn, the stone soup yarn today? Or did you pretty much say it all on Wednesdays?
I didn't say all of it. I mean, I can go through the wools a little bit. I just was giving everybody a chance to talk a little bit. So anybody else have questions or anything they want to share?
This is Cindy, and I do, again, because I haven't been on any of the calls. I'm also working on the lap blanket, and oops, my Velcro just stuck to it. And that's what I have so far.
Right.
And I was contemplating like going backwards, like maybe doing another row of the brown and then this and this and that. But and it doesn't seem, it's like only 12.5 inches so far, and I feel like I'm through half of my yarn.
Well, my finished blanket was about 26 or 27 inches wide when it was done. I did 11 stripes of different widths. And I used up pretty much every last yard of yarn. I had very little left over, but it did block out. That 26-inch width blocked out to like 32. I could have even stretched it more.
Oh,
and then,
okay.
And then as I didn't pin it at 32 because my pattern said 30. So I just laid it flat without pinning, and it did shrink up a little bit when it dried. So with all that garter stitch in there, it's going to be contracted a bit until it's blocked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't following along, I followed exactly. I couldn't think outside the box because I didn't know where I was
I think
going.
most people did that. Followed exactly. But you should be fine. You should have plenty. And even if you didn't get as many stripes as I did, it definitely could have stretched to a bigger size.
My large scarf ended up a lot bigger. I got 13 inches on it.
What?
On my large scarf, it ended up longer and wider when I when I.
Yeah, it wants to be bigger than even the stated sizes on the pattern. But if you want to keep it smaller, it will shrink back if you just let it sit. So there's that.
It sounds like reversing the order of the patterns would be kind of nice too. If that's what you were sort of thinking, it would be symmetrical, and yeah, that would be pretty.
And kind of have like a little bit of a, not a gradient effect, but just a mirrored effect. Yeah.
That's what I did. I did all of the different colors until I got to the middle. And then I did all of the colors backwards. And it really did turn out nice.
Oh, can you hold it up? Can you hold it up again, Amy?
Yeah, sure. I'll see if I can. So I'll hold it up. So this is the middle row. I don't know if you can tell. You can see it here. See how that's the middle row? And so each side has that. This is these, I don't know which yarn's which. Now I've lost. I have it written down so I can tell later, because this is sort of like my giant hand sampler.
It looks like stone soup. It looks like stone soup DK and maybe in slate or something.
Yeah, because I did order some stone soup because I was really interested in it. And I wanted to have a chance to try as many yarns as I could. I also have in here, this is the barn box from the last, I guess it was May. Is May the last time we had one?
Yeah.
That's that lighter weight, but it worked out just fine. And so that's how I did it. So I just have it right in the order she does. You can't really see the contrast, but up close you can. Like you can really, let me see if I turn this light on. You can see it any better. No, that made it worse. I had light problems. So,
you're fine.
And like I said, I was impatient. So I have some like random rows of just stitches that I wanted to try that I had been like looking at anyway. And so, but I think I have all but maybe one of the, I think the only thing that's not in here that Anne included is the very last one. And that was only because I had done an this open stitch, and I didn't want to have two. I was worried about being on the end, having an open stitch, and it getting stuck on my feet. So that's the only reason I did anything differently. But it turned out good.
It did. Nice.
Yeah. So it'll look really great, I'm sure, if you do it that way.
Thanks.
I'm doing the large throw, but I was using my own yarn and kind of doing a seascape gradient. So I'm now on color number 6, which is kind of this, it's called driftwood. And then the last one that I'll have in the middle, and then I'm just gonna fade out like they were doing, is kind of this mossy green, or kind of kelp green. So it'll go like all the way into that driftwood and green and then back out. So I'm still working on, I think I'll do, I'll do different stitch motifs for the last 2 colors. But
pretty.
And are you going to mix up your stitch patterns, or are you going to repeat the same stitch pattern for?
I think I'm going to repeat the same stitch pattern. So in the 2 center colors that'll be in addition to what was in the written pattern, I'll make up my own stitch motifs, but then coming back out, I'll probably do the same stitch patterns in the same colors.
Nice.
Is that Aran weight yarn? Isha?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. What'd you say?
Oh, is that Aran weight or worsted weight yarn?
It's DK weight.
Oh, it is DK. Oh,
Yep.
Okay. It looks thicker. Cool. Very pretty. On the subject of, this is Karen in Oregon, on the subject of making up your own stitch patterns or trying different stitch patterns. I know that cable patterns or maybe twisted stitches would pull the pattern in, so I would avoid those. But and I could swatch, but I'm going to be lazy and ask you about the basket weave stitch. Would that be a safe one?
I think any knit purl pattern would be totally safe, and
Okay.
the basket weave is a really good one. And then you just want to. The only reason the stitch counts adjust is for the patterns.
Repeat.
It right.
I understand. Yeah.
And then like that last pattern, want it to be looser because it's more open work. And so that's why there's a decrease of 6 total stitches on that last pattern, because just to tame it a little bit.
Oh, I was wondering about that. Yeah.
It wanted to be like lettuce a little bit. So
right. Okay.
I decreased more severely on that to get ready for that pattern. And the first one did the same thing. So kind of interesting. In general, the solid patterns are going to be a little tighter than the open work patterns are. I would say knit purl patterns, open work patterns that aren't too lacy will probably be fine. And what else? What else is there? There's nothing else. And there are so many of those.
There's mosaic.
But see, that also has its own gauge issues. So you don't want to choose something that's got too much of a gauge issue. Too different of a gauge than the rest of it.
How about the traveling stitches?
Like twist stitches, you mean?
Are they twisted? I don't know. I just see pictures of them.
Well, traveling stitches generally mean that the stitches cross over other stitches to get to a new place.
Oh, so you have to do some.
You're always twisting or cabling them to get them.
Okay.
Now open work stitches also have traveling stitches, just like that last pattern E. Those stitches travel in one direction throughout the pattern. So lace patterns and twist stitches and cables all have traveling stitches.
Okay, and how about brioche?
Some brioche does have traveling stitches. Oh,
but I mean, as far as gauge.
Just like I said before, anything that is gonna throw a monkey wrench into your general gauge is probably something to avoid. Just because you can get away with a little bit of it when the stripe is in the middle and encompassed by other stripes that will tame it. But if you don't want to swatch, especially, I mean, it's really hard it's hard to be super helpful and tell you that you can do anything you want, because I'm not going to do that. But yeah, let's just say that knit purl stitches and minimal open work stitches are probably your safest bet.
Okay, that's what I figured.
And there's lots of those out there.
There are, yeah.
Even in basket weave, there are many versions of basket weave that you can do.
Oh, the other question was ribbing. Like you did the one ribbing stitch, but something like a twisted rib, would that be too tight, or is that more stretchy? That's less stretchy, right?
Yes, it's twisted rib usually has a contracted, it's a stiffer rib, so it has more contraction than other ribs.
Okay, yeah, so probably not.
But again, there are lots of other ribs.
something like a moss, or I don't know what the bigger size of that is, pebble, where there's like a 2x2 kind of thing, or a 1x1 kind of thing where you alternate. That would be pretty, and it's sort of a rib. There's also
Or
that
like a-
one called mistake rib, where I think it's fairly open, but it looks sort of ribby, you know? That might work.
Oh,
I
cool.
like that rib from the knotty pine. That's a textured rib. It has a little pinstripe up the middle.
Yeah, I
There's-
think that might be the one I was thinking of that I've heard of called mistake rib.
No, mistake rib is different than that. Mistake
Oh, yeah.
rib has little edges on the ribs.
Yeah, there's you skip a row of ribbing, right? You knit one whole row instead of ribbing or something like
I
that.
think what it is, like, so let's say you're doing knit two, purl, or knit three, purl two. On one row, the 3 knit stitches overhang each other this way, and on the other row, they overhang that way, so that you're always getting this.
Right.
It's like when you make a mistake in your ribbing.
And you get a little pebbly kind of effect in the stripes. Yeah, it's nice.
Exactly. Yeah. And the center is a solid two stitch stockinette.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
The one that's sort of a rib in this is really, really attractive. I know you said you used that as ribbing on some other patterns, but I haven't looked at them yet.
it's called a
That's very
garter
nice.
stitch, a garter rib.
Garter rib. Nice
So
looking.
yeah, there's so many possibilities.
That's
out
true.
there.
I
There's
love
no-
the fact that these types of really simple patterns, when you do them in a large volume, just become a whole different thing. Like the effectiveness of my favorite, right? The C fret with that very simple pattern. You know, you've just got really a box shape, but when you do it on a whole sweater, it's just completely different looking. It's really cool.
And you
It's a
can
nice effect.
alter, you can make it, like I think in that pattern, it's a repeat of 6 stitches maybe, or 5. But you can make it a repeat of 6 stitches or 4 stitches. I mean,
That's true.
You can
Make different size
resize it.
boxes.
Yeah, you can resize those things pretty easily as well. And if you're a designer, you have to think that way, like to make things work sometimes. Like this this pattern that I made that shawl with, those two, the larger petal pattern and the smaller petal pattern were not initially the same stitch count, but I rejiggered one of the patterns to be the same stitch count, so to make them be able to interleave with each other. And sometimes, some patterns are easier to do that with than others. But for this blanket, I think everything in it is like most of the patterns are a multiple of 8 stitches. It's like 8 stitches, 4 stitches, 6 stitches. So they can be easily married to each other. If you're working with something with huge repeats, that's some kind of weird number, that could prove problematic.
Can you tell me, I think I'm gonna need more of the second yarn. Is that one the Corriedale?
Corriedale.
Can we buy just one color, or do we have to buy the?
No, they're all available individually. Every time you got an email, you got the link to the yarn as well. And we'll be rolling out these yarns more publicly now that the knit along is gonna be ending. And so that everybody can see them and purchase them. So yeah. If you go on our website and just search for Corriedale, it should come up.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone who's on right now was not with us Wednesday night. Melissa, I know wasn't. We are knitting with Stone Soup DK, which is one of our very favorite yarns. We've been producing this yarn since 2013, and it is a lovely, lovely blend. And the reason even though it's one of our tried and trues, it's something I threw it into this mix because I didn't throw it. I purposely added it because it's one of my favorites, but also I really wanted people to try it. It's a yarn that many people tell us looks like it's scratchy, which it's really hard to get past that hurdle when you're showing products on the internet and you only have photographs to show off things. So it's, I can't influence the way someone thinks something looks or how they're predicting that it's going to feel. But if I have the opportunity to force it on you, I might take that up, So knowing that after 2 years of doing Barn Box, that forcing things on people or surprising, we prefer to think of it as, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, hang on.
So the CVM is the sort of the ribbed pattern that we were all talking about, right? That's the one that, yeah, that is yum, yum, yum. I like that stuff. Okay.
Is it CVM and Romney or Merino?
It's the Merino CVM blend.
Blend, okay.
Yeah. And it's destined to be something at my house in a sweater form because, wow, that stuff is nice.
Well, don't forget, Anne said that there was not very much of that.
Oh, lovely.
I'm sorry.
Order it sooner rather than later, and I would before it goes like more wide stream to everybody else who wasn't in the knit along.
Good point.
Sorry about that. The wind is getting really bad, and something blew over, and the dogs are already nervous, and they erupted. Anyway.
And
so
can I make a comment? Edith had mentioned that she struggled at the beginning. I hope, Edith, I'm saying it right, of working with number 5 and the pattern. Now, I tore out the number 5 pattern 3 times. One was knitting with such a dark color and my aging eyes with my lenses versus, because I had my cataracts done. The second was, you know how you say that it doesn't pill? Okay. Well, as I tore it out and rewound it 3 times, it became easier to work with. It became softer. It became more visible. And so if you showed someone it, in the skein and then showed it to them when it was re-knitted or worked, it's different. It's very different. So I've converted after ripping out the pattern 3 times.
It's very durable yarn, this blend. It really doesn't pill, and it doesn't get fuzzy, and it does, you can rip and reknit it really easily. I thought you were going to tell me something went horribly wrong. I was getting nervous.
No, no.
Now you know why it's my all-time favorite yarn, Karen.
The thing about the last pattern that will screw you up is if you're using markers to separate every repeat or every couple repeats, the repeats share, lend and borrow stitches going across the row. So your markers are going to have to move periodically to accommodate that. So I think we covered that the other night, but just for those.
Can I add something else good? And please forgive me.
No,
you can't see me because I don't have my top teeth in because of gum problems. Anyway, no, I can read the pattern better because it's tamed. Anyway, that's my.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And you don't have to worry about your teeth because we can still see your mouth anyway. So just briefly, one of the great things about a blend is that blends take advantage of the best of the characteristics that are in the wools that are contained. So the strengths of each wool tend to rise to the top in a blend, and the weaknesses of each wool are compensated for and tend to be they drop off, or the influence of the less desirable characteristics, they're just not as influential when you use a blend. So often what you look to do in a blend is to combine wools that have characteristics that complement each other, that still have similar, although they don't have to be the same or exactly the same, similar fiber length and fiber diameter, so that they actually blend, and that they don't, when the fibers have very different weights and lengths and diameters, they tend to separate like bad milk. So they tend to just want to gravitate, gravity in the spinning process will pull them apart. So you want to choose fibers that will spin nicely together, but still have characteristics that offset each other. So in this blend, we have a large quantity of Rambouillet Merino, and Rambouillet is the French branch of the Merino family. They did develop, although many centuries ago in the 1700s, Rambouillet sheep were developed from the original Merino stock from Spain, but when they were brought to France, they were bred to have larger bodies and to produce more meat. And so eventually that subcategory of Merinos became its own name, which is Rambouillet. The fleece is very, very much like a Saxon Merino. It is super soft and fluffy. They produce a large volume of fleece, and it has all the characteristics of regular Merino or Saxon Merino. And so the blend in this yarn is 80% wool, 15% alpaca, and 5% luxury fiber. The 80% of the 80% wool, 60% of that is the Rambouillet Merino. And Rambouillet Merino is available to us in a variety of colors. So depending on the shade of stone soup, there will be more or less white, gray, or dark brown Rambouillet fiber in there. Stone soup is a single color yarn that is available in 5 gradient shades. So from the lightest, which is marble, to the darkest, which is river rock, which is what you're using. That's the darkest. And it's a beautiful, deep espresso coffee colored, almost a blue, black, brown shade. I just love it. And then it is a tweed yarn that the part of the luxury fiber that's included in this blend is included as little neps that create that tweedy look, those speckles that are in the yarn. And those speckles are added in the carding stage, and they are lightly attached to the rest of the wool. So they do, they do attach themselves. They will loosen. If this yarn pills or appears to be pilling, it's often just the little nets that are coming out of the fiber. So,
yeah.
So back to the wool itself. I'm not going to go into the alpaca portion today because that's sort of like a whole other discussion, but 15% of the blend is alpaca. It's very high quality alpaca. It is not the de-haired alpaca that's in the Better Breakfast yarn, but it is extremely high quality. It comes from an alpaca co-op that is available to our mill out west, and they buy the grade that is, I think, second from the top. So the top grade of alpaca is it's super expensive, super luxurious and silky. But the second grade is really, really nice. And sometimes those really silky luxury level qualities don't work well in the larger mill equipment. They're like great for hand spinning, or it's great when you're just combining it with silk, but for the purposes of making a blend with wool, it might be too fine or too slippery or too long to really be worth the money that it costs. And of course, alpaca is available in a variety of shades as well. So our mill has a recipe for the blend, and they also have a recipe for each shade of the blend. And it's at this point, very precise. We've been making this yarn for 10 years. And in the beginning, the colors were not as reliable because we were all still working out what the shades, how far apart the shades should be, how much darker one should be than another, and how do you achieve that? Well, by the third year or so, we kind of had that down. And so now there's like a precise amount of this color alpaca and that color of wool to make each shade of the blend. And then back to the wool. So 60% of the wool is Romiley, and the other 40% is divided between 3 other breeds of wool. One is the Lincoln long wool, which we discussed a little bit when we talked about the Perrindale cross. The Perrindale being, I'm sorry, we did talk about it in the Perrindale cross, but we talked about it even more in the Corriedale cross. So the Lincoln is the male, the male's contribution. It's Lincoln Ram over Merino ewe is the Corriedale, and then the Perrindale, they tried using the Lincoln to cross with the Romney, but is that right, Romney? But ended up using the Cheviot because that gave better, more consistent results. So in our wool, the Lincoln is the long, sturdy wool. It's a little bit coarser, but it has that long wool sheen and strength. And it is also a really, really rich dark brown. So it complements the dark browns of the Merino really nicely. And it's reliably dark. So the Lincoln provides that deep, deep, dark brown, black color. The Merino supply, which we always need more of, being a larger percentage of the blend, the the availability of colors varies from season to season. And so that's why having the alpaca component and the Lincoln component and the churro component, they provide color to balance out any variances in the merino supply. So for instance, we get all of our merino from one large family-run ranch in Montana, and they are focusing at least some of their production on colored Rambouillet wool. But how many sheep they might have of a certain shade and how intense the shade is from generation to generation, or even from year to year in the same generation, that can vary a lot. So the Lincoln being a very reliable deep dark brown, and the alpaca available also in a range of colors, helps to create tones that appear extremely similar from one order to the next for us, which is really cool. It's kind of like they're dying, but they're not dying. They're blending natural colors to get that same result that you might blend different dye stuff with. I have to take a minute. Our employee at the store is texting me with a question. Sorry. Okay, so that's the Lincoln. Lincoln is a really old heritage breed. It's a British breed. It is a very large, rectangular, kind of lumbering sheep, and it has really strong genetics. So really assertive genetics. So Lincoln is often used when a sheep breed needs to be, when it is felt that a sheep breed needs to be improved for certain circumstances, or in many cases due to climate change or due to the changes in terrain, as we saw in the New Zealand example, where large areas of terrain became over grazed and undesirable for grazing the existing sheep. They improved the sheep so that they could eat, a different diet. And the way that they did that was to cross other breeds in. And Lincolns are, many times they try Lincoln first because the genetics are so assertive, and they have very healthy genetics. Hang on one sec. Sorry about that. I'm really sorry about that. I'm kind of covering, supervising the shop from my house. But we're using Lincoln in and of itself. We're not using it as a crossover in this case. And our Lincoln is a scarce breed. It's, at the time that we first introduced it in our club, back in, I think 2013 or 2014. There were less than 2,000 Lincoln animals globally. And our source in the United States, which is a California farm, was at that time had, I think, 1,200 or 1,500 of them. So we had a very large, we're lucky to have a large source here in the United States. In other places in Great Britain where the breed originated, it's a very rare breed. Now, that was then. There has been a lot of progress by both organizations here in the United States and the British Wool Board to promote the British breeds and to get people raising them again in larger quantities and interested in developing flocks. So I don't know what the current state of in Great Britain is of the Lincoln breed, but I know it's been moved on the conservation list. It keeps getting moved to a better spot. So that's a good thing. It's not moving in the wrong direction, thankfully for us. Because as we know, the number of sheep breeds that produce a range of color fibers is not that great. And for our needs, and not just when I say our, I don't mean me personally, although I benefit from it, but hand spinners and weavers and people who love natural colors, we just don't get the top priority in terms of a market because we can never buy enough. Even though we feel like we buy a lot, we can never buy in the quantities that like the clothing industry does. So the profitability of colored wool and heritage wools is on the rise, but not in any way competitive to the larger textile industry. And so many large ranches and concerns that are producing great quantities of wool are still focusing on producing white wool and consistently good big fleeces of fluffy white, bright white wool that can be dyed and produce true colors. Now the other sheep breed, one of the other sheep breeds is the Columbia sheep, which we talked about a little bit the other night, but we didn't get into too many details. But Columbia are a modern breed, meaning that they were developed after the 1850-ish, 1830s, 1850s. People who were trying to meet the increasing demand for wool across the world were trying to think of ways to improve breeds or even come up with new breeds that would produce large volumes of wool, large meat carcasses that would be easy to take care of and have lots of lambs and just be more efficient animals all around. So Columbia sheep were developed on the wave of the modern sheep production or development that occurred between 1850 and 1950, more or less, and still occurs. You know, it's still ongoing, but not with the great enthusiasm or the productivity that it did in those years. Columbia are a large sheep, one of the largest sheep breeds. They're tall with long legs. They have big bodies, big meat carcasses. They can weigh up to 300 pounds. They're very big boys and girls. And they are a cross of Rambouillet ewes with Lincoln sire. So Lincoln crossed over Rambouillet. And it's kind of cool. They are a total American product. First, the development of the breed began in 1912 by the United States Department of Agriculture. So the Bureau of Animal Industry maintained the line and progress with more intensive breeding and selection to bring the breed to a kind of superior, you know, a result that was in their mind the superior breed. And so the original cross was developed in Laramie, Wyoming, and then that flock was moved to the sheep experiment station at Du Bois, Idaho. So this like brand new, you know, it's very proud thing for, I guess, American ranchers to produce their own original cross. But it is a really hardy, large sheep that does really well on Western ranges. And as Wendy was saying the other night, it's really popular sheep out in the Oregon, Washington, Wyoming, and Montana areas, because they can be let out on the ranges in spring and roam far and wide and come back. You know, they don't need to be tended to or coddled or looked after awfully closely. They can lamb and mother easily out in the open. They don't need, you know, special birthing areas or anything like that. They do produce a white fleece. It's high in volume with it's considered a medium wool. So micron count of 31 or 24 to 31 microns, which is just outside of the merino range. 24 and 25 microns would still be considered a merino type fleece. But when you get above 25, you're starting to talk about medium fleece. Staple length is 3.5 to 5 inches, which is perfect for mill spinning and for blending with other fibers, especially merino. And their fleeces weigh between 10 and 16 pounds, which is quite big. And the yield, which is something I haven't mentioned too much, but the yield of the fleece is 45 to 55%. And that means that of the 10 to 16 pounds, after the grease and dirt is washed off, you will be left with a 45 to 50% clean wool from the original weight. That's a really important point with wool, because when you ship raw wool to be processed, you have to pay the shipping on the raw wool going in. And if you lose 40 to 50% of it down the drain in the wash, then you know, that's kind of a waste. So you're always looking to get a higher clean yield and still maintain all the properties of a greasier fleece, which, you know, we talked about a couple of times. The softer, finer wools have a higher lanolin and grease content. You know, the skin of the animal produces more fleece. It's coated and moisturized constantly by the animal, but also caked with that stuff when it gets sheared. So those fleeces have a kind of greasy, waxy coating and content that gets cleaned off when it goes into processing. For ranchers, for us, that's really nice because it protects the fleece, it keeps it soft and shiny, it gives it some lasting moisture and strength, and a lovely knitting experience. Still have some of that lanolin in the wool. But for the rancher, they are losing every time they ship raw fleece off, and once it gets washed, they're losing, you know, somewhere between 40 and 50% of their weight, of their wool weight, with these softer, finer fibers, like merino, like Columbia, like even Corriedale. Although the yield on Corriedale is usually a little higher. So that's the Columbia sheep. You can find these everywhere too. When you go to even our little local sheep and wool show, there are the Columbia sheep prancing through, the big bossy ones, and they're very nice animals. They're easy to handle, and they are often the ones that they're shearing at the show, so that you know, they can kind of demonstrate shearing to people. These animals, in my observations, these animals will stand still and kind of let themselves be handled without too much, you know, they're not really very wild. And that's kind of a characteristic of modern breeds. One of the things you can breed for is temperament, and the ease, how easily animals can be handled. I had a friend who raised Romney sheep, and those are also a large sheep, but a heritage breed. And she would say, she had some Shetland sheep as well, and she would always say, the Shetlands are so easy, they're little, you can pretty much pick them up on your arm sometimes, but some of them are that small. But the Romneys kind of taught her a lesson about keeping sheep and what your goals are. You know, she's like, my goal was to have sheep that had more fleece, but I got into a situation where I couldn't handle the sheep myself. It was, you know, she wasn't strong enough or trained enough to be able to handle those sheep. So so people who run Columbia sheep and Columbia rams in particular need to be able to handle them, or have I guess procedures by which to handle them when it comes time. Any questions about that? So modern breed, white wool, and I have not read anything about Columbia sheep and producing dark wool, but it's possible that it's happening somewhere, or that it's unlikely that a mutation would occur with this. It's not like the California variegated mutant that we studied, which was kind of so overbred that, or such a small gene pool that they began to see mutants, and therefore colored sheep began to be produced. With Columbia, there's plenty of stock to breed with. There's tons of Ramalais sheep available. There are plenty of Lincoln, you can do artificial insemination with Lincoln sperm and be producing plenty of that. There are farms across the nation that raise Columbia sheep. It's such a great, productive sheep that the gene pool for this breed is, after 110 years now of breeding, the gene pool is huge. So you won't see colored sheep via mutation, but you might see some latent, I would think you'd see some latent influence by the Lincoln breed on the Columbia that might produce some colored results. I just don't think anyone's doing it. That's not why people raise these sheep. And I could be proven wrong. I just haven't ever read about it. All right. So then the third sheep So we did the,
And may
we
I
did,
ask a question?
yes.
So we see a lot of wool, obviously in fashion. What does much of the fashion industry use for clothing? I mean, for what we see, like 100% wool clothing, what primarily do they use as far as breeds are concerned?
Mostly, so the vast quantity of wool that goes into clothing, it gets dyed. And so most of it is white, and it's gonna be, most large ranchers are selling their wool into like a wool pool. It's like dairy farmers selling their milk into like a milk pool, you know, like the carnation industry, or, you know, a lot of, they collect milk from all over the place and combine it. And it's the same thing with wool. So wool is being collected at co-ops, or and not even, they call it a co-op, but it's not like what you think of as like a volunteer co-op. It's just a big, you know, warehousing concern for wool. Kind of like the British wool market. Unless someone like me contacts a source and buys like an entire clip of wool, that's pretty much what's happening with most people's wool. Or alternatively, if a farm is raising wool and having their own yarn spun, or their own cloth woven, or their own blankets made, something like that, that's always an option as well. So once the wools go into this co-op, they're combined for the purpose of the textile industry. Obviously, in order to label something merino wool, it has to be merino type wool. It doesn't have to be Saxon merino wool. It just has to be merino type, meaning wool that meets the micron count standard and length for merino sheep. So it could be Corriedale, or it could be Rambouillet, or it could be CBM. Oh, it would never be CBM, but it could be, as long as it meets the guideline for, or the standard for merino type. Now, I don't have all the labeling memorized, but what I do know is labeling is it's not devised to lie, but but the classifications of labeling are loose and no one is checking. So so I don't know if there's separate classifications for true merino wool as opposed to merino type wool or not. Or I can never remember what virgin wool.
No, I realize that, you know, I just curious that when I buy something that says 100%.
Well, I'm getting to the point you asked about, and I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But it does get really convoluted and confusing. So most of the wool that goes into like everyday just wool clothing would be a mix of medium staple wools. So things like Corriedale, Columbia, even the Perrindale, if it wasn't, you know, so scarce. I'm just trying to think of other ones. There's so many. Dorset is another sheep that's produced in pretty good quantity, I think. And a large sheep that produces a lot of wool that can be. And then there are all the merino crosses that fail to make the grade in merino. It just gets put over with the other with the medium length fibers.
Where does Targhee fit in there?
Targhee is a fine wool. It's and now I'm going to forget my cross again.
Sorry.
Let me just, no, it's okay. I wasn't planning on talking about it, so I don't have it pulled up. Hang
I
on.
didn't mean to get you completely off track. I'm just fascinated the more you talk about grades of wool and types of wool, I'm interested to think when I buy something that says 100% fine wool, I haven't really given it much thought until you started talking more and more about grades of wool.
Yeah, yeah. Wool is graded by micron diameter, staple length, and then just the general quality. You know, like some wool arrives at market damaged, but can still be used, let's say, for wool batting or stuffing or rugs. Long wools are usually collected for use in upholstery and rugs and hardier outerwear and, you know, hardier kinds of textiles. Fine wools are used, and super fine wools like, you know, merino really being the main one, Rambouillet and merino, for things like underwear and lightweight sweaters and soft things like that. And even within merino, the lamb's wool is going to be even finer and softer than the adult merino wool. So it's all graded. There are people who do this professionally. You can take classes, you can sign up for classes that teach you how to grade wool, even if it's just for yourself. And it's just like any warehouse at Home Depot or anywhere where there are products floor to ceiling. The bales of wool are like that too. And it's all classified, and then there are auctions to buy it. So big companies like, you know, Ameritex and, oh, I don't know. What's that big one that begins with an M?
Massimo? Massimo? That you get at Target?
No. It's a huge industrial company that makes all different kinds of things. Do you know, Catherine?
There's Cargill. There's the one that starts with a B, but that's more German. But basically, it's commoditized. And then big corporations blend it. You know, it's sort of the same as maple syrup. We're just going to put it all in a vat, mix it all up, and then we're going to, here you go. And we're going to call it this.
Yeah. But with wool, it is graded and everything so that there are different levels, and, you know, there are certain grades that are good for certain purposes, and it's somewhat separated by wool type and things like that.
Well, again, I didn't mean to get you
No.
But I find it fascinating. I really find it fascinating.
I think it's really interesting because it lends to how special Anne's yarns are. Like you could go buy a quote unquote wool sweater at wherever,
what I mean. Yeah.
Whether it's a department store or whatever, but you can see why when you knit something with anything from Bare Naked Wools, it's going to last decades.
Yeah, no,
because the quality is so
absolutely,
good.
Absolutely. That's why that's why I do it, because I know I'm buying a quality product and I'm knitting a quality sweater. But I've always been curious about the labels. What do they mean? And I'm curious, I'm always suspicious of what that means a little bit.
Well, yeah, you can be. I mean, I don't know if it's worth being too suspicious of something that you have like no control over. You know?
Yes. Well, such is life.
However, getting back to your original question, medium. You know, everybody wants what's going to please the most people is what's going to sell the most, and what is the most versatile. So, in general, a really generic blend of wool is going to have a lot of different medium fibers with some sturdier long wools thrown in, and some low grade fine wool thrown in, so that they all mix.
And well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
And by the way, tons and tons of your yarns that are available commercially are spun from the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. When I
You know.
first started knitting, I mean, when I first started, I bought whatever I could find, and a lot of it was like acrylic. And then once you get a taste for the really good stuff, you're spoiled forever. So it's the same, much the same kind of way. But thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your time and your explanation.
I didn't mean to like go off.
No. I appreciate all of that detail. I really do. An informed consumer is a good consumer. So.
I think so. Let's see. I never did come up
Wanted
with
to say the other things that yarns like Bare Naked Wools do is they offer the small farmer a way to get more money for their quality fleece, because if it doesn't sell, it gets thrown in that pool and they don't get the same money.
Oh yeah, the wool price in those pools is really, really disappointing. And I think I said this before that the mill that spins our stone soup yarn, the way that they got started is they were knitters. These two women, they knew each other from church. They noticed that in their area there were all these, sheep farmers, these Basque sheep. They're not Basque anymore, they're Americans who farm in the Basque tradition in their area, throwing their merino fleeces in the ditch because it costs enough to shear them. They didn't want to pay any more to truck it to the wool pool to get, negative return on it. So those those fleeces are now in your hands in the form of yarns like stone soup. We're buying our fleeces from those farms, and literally they are perfectly fine fleeces, more than perfectly fine, just worthless in other markets, particularly the colored wools. It's been a real experience and learning curve to work with the mills to get our producers to produce more of the colored fiber. Some of them are really entrenched in the traditional ways they've done things, and find it only when they get that paycheck after the first season are they convinced, and fortunately, it's not a sure thing, but breeding sheep for color, getting the results you want from breeding sheep a certain way is, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's not, but it is possible and doable. And it's really a matter of joining, putting together the right sheep with each other. For the most part, there are some breeds we've talked about that have more irregular results, even with genetics that makes sense, you might get a nonsensical result. But with sheep like Merino and Romneys and Lincoln, you can get pretty reliable results breeding for color. So it's been a real pleasure and honor to be part of, getting people to think a different way and try something new and take an adventure and supply us with what ends up in your hands. And then the next, the other third wool besides, so we talked about the Columbia, we talked about the Lincoln and the Romiley, and the fourth wool that's included in this blend is the churro wool, which is churro is a wool that traditionally was raised by first people, indigenous people in North America from the United States down through Mexico. And it is the earliest North American breed, which means that it predates the United States as a country. So We can't really talk about it as an American sheep product. So the original Chura sheep were brought to North America by the Spanish, and they're a very old breed of Spanish sheep from the Castile and Leon region of Spain. And I'm going to be constantly referring to my notes here because I want to get it right. So they first arrived in 1493 on Christopher Columbus's second voyage to the New World. And then again, another influx was brought by Cortez in 1519. So primarily these sheep were transported to provide food for the troops and the settlers. They also quickly was realized that they would produce a reliable source of wool. And for those of you who've been around when I've talked about the development of the wool industry in the United States, you know that before the 1800s, before the Industrial Revolution, wool was a very precious commodity, and we didn't produce a lot of it in the United States or in North America as a whole. And a lot of the wool that was needed, first of all, we didn't have a variety of different fabrics. There was wool and there was linen, and wool was for, winter, and very, very lightweight wool could be worn into the summer. And then there was linen for very, very warm areas. So wool has been worn and really used as an kind of a miracle fabric for centuries by humans. But before the Industrial Revolution, it had to be raised by hand, fed by hand, sheared by hand, spun by hand, woven by hand, or knitted by hand. So the amount of wool that was possible to be raised by any single farm depended on the size of the farm family or the farm community. And the ability to produce products made from wool was limited by, again, the size of the family or the cooperativeness of the community at large. So there were many places that developed, communal processing of wool, and the work of raising the wool, shearing it, cleaning it, spinning it, weaving it was dispersed around a community so that whoever was doing each job could do it more efficiently and more wool could be produced for the entire community. And churro is a sheep that was part of that. So it's an old enough sheep to have been, raised and bred for the purposes of that kind of communal dispersal. It is a double-coated sheep, meaning that it has a long, kind of coarse hair coat that is supported underneath by a very fine, silkier, fluffier undercoat. You see that also in some Shetland sheep, Icelandic sheep, and llamas and alpaca too. So the undercoat is, of course, what we kind of desire as for a fine yarn. The undercoat can be as fine as 10 microns, so much finer than merino wool. And it's very fluffy and really lovely. Again, with as with any fiber, churro isn't a widespread breed. So there's a lot at stake to making sure that the best parts of the fleeces are exploited for the most benefit. But that said, just like with alpaca, I'm sure that there are different grades of it that contain more and less of the hair fiber. Let's see. So the Spanish brought the sheep to this country and you know, to the colonies that they had in North America. And the Navajo began trading with Spanish settlements for goods and livestock. And that's how the Navajo kind of became the, I guess, the guardians of this breed, and why they are now called the Navajo churro. The indigenous people of the Southwest maintained the breed, developed breeding programs and practices for it, and used the wool for, they didn't use it so much for knitting, but did a lot of weaving with it, rug making and things like that. So one of the things that happened in 1680 was that the Navajo people, who had been kind of subjugated by the Spanish settlers, revolted, and causing the settlers to retreat. And when they did that, they left their churro sheep behind, and that kind of improved the Navajo holdings of these sheep, so that, you know, they had acquired a much larger stock kind of all of a sudden. And that contributed to an improved breeding program, an improved ability to develop ways of gleaning the fiber and processing it in larger quantities. Let's see. I'm going to try to, I read through this, and let's see. So fast forward, of course, as we all know, the great kind of indigenous Holocaust almost that occurred in this country put I don't know, kind of quashed also the practices that they had, whether it was farming or the way that they monitored and preserved their lands, or the kinds of animals that they raised. Many breeds of animals went into like rare breed or extinct status when native people were reduced, when the population of native people reduced to the point where no one could raise these animals, as well as, of course, people being removed from the lands where they could graze animals to reservations and townships and places where they just really couldn't have those kinds of flocks. So the breed became nearly extinct between 1930 and the 1970s. In 1930, there were nearly 575,000 sheep on the Navajo reservation, but by the 1970s, it was close to extinction. Enter a sheep specialist, not a speech shepherdess, a sheep specialist named Lyle McNeil, who encountered this breed in 1972. He found them being used as game animals by ranchers for basically recreational hunting and shooting sport. That's kind of popular it's popular in lots of places, but in the Southwest, there are, I guess, big like game ranches where people can go and like hunt. But they're hunting animals that are contained. So he decided, intrigued by the sheep, which are, they're kind of a small sheep, and he decided to try and reverse the course that it was on to extinction. So starting with 6 ewes and 2 rams, he built a small flock. And after accepting a position at Utah State University, he's brought his flock along with him and grew it to 30 sheep. And then the university encouraged this Dr. McNeil to continue his work with the churro sheep, and even paid for him to relocate his flock to Utah. So that was the start of this Navajo sheep project, which over the next several decades, he would make visits to the Navajo reservation, looking to buy churro to add to his flock, but also to exchange animals and cultivate other flocks on the reservation wherever possible, even small ones. So since the start of this project in the 70s, over 2,000 Navajo churro sheep have been returned to the Navajo lands from the program, and at least have as many more have been dispersed to other ranches across the United States. In addition, there's a tribe in Copper Canyon, Mexico, that is cultivating flocks of their own. So with sheep procured through this program. So the genetics are spreading around. We're getting churro sheep flocks dispersed in different places, which is always good for the genetics to have sheep that are challenged in different ways and developing different skills and different physical characteristics to adapt to those situations. Then if they are, if by using artificial insemination, if that sperm can be traded around, you're actually increasing, the number of sheep that have those improved genetics. Let's see. Just taking a minute to. The original Navajo sheep project was kind of dispersed in 2002 when the project ran into financial difficulties. A lot of the base flock that they had grown was sold or traded to the Navajo so that they could take over managing the registry, and conducting outreach education on the breed throughout mostly in the Southwest United States. Since that time, the registered number of Navajo churro sheep in the United States has risen to 3,000. It doesn't sound like a lot, but those numbers are better than 0 and growing. So that's a good thing. So churro is typically classified as a coarse wool. It's very durable. It's mainly used for weaving rugs and blankets and upholstery, and outerwear of different kinds. The inner coat or the undercoat of the sheep is very fine. It can be as little as 10 microns, like I said, that's like silk or Suri alpaca. It's really fine and silky. And it is available in a range of colors, ranging from white, black, reddish brown, and different browns and grays. And one of the cool things about churro is that the gray and brown colors tend toward blueness. Like sometimes it's been said that when you look at a flock of dark churro sheep, you can see a blue, like a blue reflecting off their coat. And to me, when I look at the middle gray shades of the stone soup colors, I can kind of see that in the yarn. And when I put stone soup grays next to the Romney grays, there's a clear difference in the coolness or warmness. With the stone soup being a much cooler range of gray than the Romney colors. Or the, Targhee is another one it's very warm, oatmeal-y, brownish colors, whereas the stone soup is very heathery and cool. So those are the wools that are included in the stone soup. We have also the luxury fiber tends to be the part of the blend that gives us the speckles and streaks and the little glints of shininess and the soft halo that you get with this yarn. I said it the other night, but for people that weren't here, a very small amount of luxury fiber actually has quite an influence on the hand of the final yarn. And as little as 2% of a luxury fiber can make a tactile difference in the way a yarn feels. And you really do get this with the stone soup blend. We have seasons when that 5% might contain more bison or less bison, more silk noil and less silk noil. And to me, I can always feel it when there's more of that bison in there. It's a very noticeable hand to me. So for those of you who use stone soup over and over, that's something to look for in the yarn. For those who it's new to, you might not notice it so much. Any questions about all those different? I just realized I've been going on and on and on, and we're actually past our time, and that's okay. I can stay on for a while, but go ahead, Debbie.
So you have a lot of sweaters. I know you and Barb have a lot of sweaters knit in that stone soup. What is your favorite sweater knit in the stone soup? Is there one that you just absolutely love?
I wear my C-fret. I have a C-fret knit in stone soup fingering that I wear a lot. No, I wouldn't say there's a favorite. I love my Ivar. I love the over the water that I have knit in it. I've got counterweights knit in the and then multigrain. I mean, I wear that like a uniform when it's cold out. I actually knit 2 of those because I was kind of embarrassed to wear the same exact sweater in the exact same color every day. So
I have the Lex 405, of course, in the stone soup, and I loved it, but I was looking for something maybe a little bit more. I know everyone says it comes out more flannelly feeling the more you wear it. And so, it's just a little dressier, and so I'm not going to wear it to work quite as much. And so I was looking for something that was a little more casual.
Yeah. And you knit C-fret already, right?
I did. It was my first.
Well, another real favorite that I wear is the Wild Phillies. I knit that for David in stone soup fingering.
Okay. And Robin has some.
Yeah. Your counterweight. What is the count? Didn't you make a counterweights in stone soup, or am I getting it wrong?
In the DK. Yeah, I did say that a few minutes ago. Yeah, the counterweights and Highlander. We have Highlander knit in the stone soup DK. Okay. Are you thinking fingering or DK?
I don't really I didn't really have a preference. I mean, I love the yarn. It was so soft in the DK. You could tell when you were knitting with it that it was just kind of like knitting with velvet almost.
Yeah,
And so I just kind of thought it'd be pretty.
I knit 2 multi-grains, and and of course the whole grain would work as well.
Okay.
I'm trying to think, because I know I have a bunch. Oh, well, C-fret, and I have a C-fret cardigan and a C-fret pullover, both knit in stone soup fingering.
Okay.
And
my home office in stone soup DK, and it's
yeah, that one
beautiful.
I have that pattern, so that would work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did dandelion honey in the fingering.
Oh, that's right.
Love
Yep.
that.
Yep. And we have that sample over in the shop. Ivar was actually, that was the very first sweater that I knit in stone soup fingering when we very first got the slate color, because I had designed it. I designed it for Brooklyn Tweed with their loft, with the idea that we would produce it in the stone soup. So, and I just love that sweater. It's so beautiful. And Barb has like 2 of them knit in that. Costa Figuera. Yeah, Costa Figuera. Ivar's really nice.
Okay. Thank you.
That might be too many ideas.
You know what? One of them's going to hit my fancy when I'm deciding, so it's okay.
Yeah. You can also go on the website and search for stone soup, and patterns will come up that mention it in the description. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? Sheila? Anybody? Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. We'll be back Wednesday, right?
Yep.
And by the way, the Zoom room will be in session between knit-alongs. We just keep it going. So in between the end of this mystery knit-along and the beginning of the Rhinebeck sweater knit-along, we'll still be meeting informally on Wednesdays and Saturdays to knit and chat. So,
and will we know like how the donation?
Yeah. We'll so is this this isn't our last day.
Yeah. No, Wednesday is the 27th.
Yeah, we'll probably get numbers from Linda on Monday.
Cool.
And and then I'll have that for you, and then we'll also send it out in email. I think the fundraiser goes to August 1st, so we'll probably send out a follow-up, or we'll put it in our regular newsletter or something, so that
cool.
I'll ask Zach to please try to remember to also put it in the Ravelry group there. So.
And this was really informative. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that
thank
was really
you.
good. Yeah.
Thank you all. I'll see you Wednesday.
Okay. Bye,
all right,
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.